It was a cold New England winter night when John Baker loaded up his canoe, traps, lines, a snack, and strapped a Colt 45 to his hip. The legacy of fur trapping ran through his veins. His father and his father before him had worked and honed the skill to a science. This canoe on this swamp, it was his home. So that night, he ran trap lines for muskrats in the pitch black, just like his family had done for generations. He worked from his canoe on a section of the Hockomock River, just a mile or so from his West Bridgewater home. The night had been like countless others, peaceful, and some would say almost therapeutic as he ran through the motions of running the traps. Then something he never felt while doing his life's labor occurred. An avalanche of fear engulfed the woodsman. Something was following me, and I knew it was big, said Baker, 48. So I took the boat down a small creek to a dry hill, and it kept moving. As he paddled quietly, he could hear the relentless advance of the man-beast shatter the thin crust of swamp ice. He stopped and watched as a shadowy, hair-covered giant strode a few yards away. I knew it wasn't human because when it passed by me, I could smell it. Imagine smelling so bad that somebody immediately thinks you're not human. I mean, I've had a few rough cab rides, maybe a few times on the subway. Hell, even myself a few times coming home from the gym, but damn. Now, Baker said it smelled like a skunk, musky and dirty, like it lived in the dirt. And to a man that had spent 30 years of his life working in that swamp, the early 1980s encounter was like no other event. My heart was up in my throat, said Baker, who punctuates his sentences with a quick, you know what I mean? To this day, I don't know what it was, but I know I saw it and it was out there. And the dozens who have felt this fear know it could still be out there. The Hockomock Swamp creature. Now, the first thing that might come to mind when you think about the state of Massachusetts might be sports. They got the New England Patriots, the Green Monster at Fenway. You might even think of beautiful fall foliage. Or you might even get a bit patriotic and think about when a revolution was started over a 2% tax on a breakfast beverage that wasn't coffee. Taxation is theft. I bet the last thing that enters your mind, if you're not from the area, that is a swamp. Or the Bridgewater Triangle. It's an area of about 200 square miles in the greater Bridgewater area, claimed to be the site of alleged paranormal phenomena ranging from UFOs to poltergeists, giant snakes, thunderbirds, and of course, Sasquatch. The term was coined by the New England-based cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman, and in the triangle is the Hockomock Swamp. And Hockomock, the Indian word meaning the evil spirit place or haunted place. Another sighting in 1978, Joe Diagrande of nearby Bridgewater said he was standing by a pond on the edge of the swamp known as Clay Banks when something extraordinary happened. He had the sudden urge to turn around and there, right off, maybe 200 yards away, there was this, well, I don't know what it was, he says. It was a creature that was brown and hairy, like a big apish man thing. It was making its way for the woods, but I didn't stick around to watch, smart man. I ran for the street. He was a former security guard, and he said the creature walked slowly like Frankenstein into the bush. It's a gigantic unknown area, said David Moore, chairman of the Bridgewater Historical Commission and a member of the Bridgewater Historical Society. The vegetation is so dense you can't see sunlight. Fear of the swamp dates back to the 17th century when Wampanoag raiding parties hid among the black spruce trees during the tribe's war with English settlers. King Philip, the Indian chief, is said to have lured people into the swamp and they were never seen again. Grant has heard the sounds of drums coming from the swamp in the summer and have seen red-eyed wolf or dog-like animals. Over the years, there have been reports of glowing orbs over the swamp, bright lights in the sky over the racetrack in Ranham, and the sky above the intersections of Route 24 and Route 106. Now, this doesn't mean that the rest of the state is no stranger to paranormal activity or Sasquatch sightings. As this one on Monday, October 20th, 1983, two Pittsfield, Massachusetts men walked into the office of the Berkshire Eagle to report a strange encounter on October Mountain the previous night. And October Mountain's more on the western side of the state, as opposed to Hockomock Swamp, which is more towards the Atlantic Ocean. October Mountains, like right next to New York. The pair, 18-year-olds Eric Durant of 183 Field Street and 22-year-old Frederick Perry, said they were having a cookout with two friends when they heard strange noises at about 10 p.m. By midnight, curiosity got the best of them, and the two decided to see if they could find the source. 100 yards from camp, they said they could see the outline of a huge creature 50 yards ahead on the trail. When the cookout finished at 1 a.m., their car headlights illuminated the creature in the bushes. It stood 6 to 7 feet tall, had dark brown hair and strange glowing eyes. Both men emphasized that it stood on two legs, and they were certain that it was no bear. As Perry got out of his vehicle and walked towards it, it quickly vanished. Crazy. Despite its size and encountering the creature in the woods in the dark, he said, whatever it was, it didn't look like it was going to harm you. The next day, Perry and one of his friends went to the site again around noon and said they caught a glimpse of the creature moving very fast and swinging its arms as it moved through the woods. Once again, probably Bob Squatch, and he said, nah, not today. Now, this last one that we're going to mention today is, oh my goodness, all right. Much excitement prevails among the sportsmen of this vicinity over the story that a wild man was seen on Friday by two young men while hunting in the mountains of South Williamstown, which is the western northern corner of the state, just south of Vermont. The young men described the creature as being about 5 feet high, resembling a man in form and movement, but covered all over with bright red hair. So a ginger Bigfoot, and with very wild eyes. When first seen, the creature sprang from behind a rocky cliff and started for the woods nearby. When mistaking it for a bear or another wild animal, one of the men fired, and it is thought wounded it. For the fierce cries of pain and rage, it turned on its assailants, driving them before it at a high speed. They lost their guns and ammunition, and I'm sure shit their pants, and dared not return for fear of encountering the strange being. That's going to wrap up our look at some of the Massachusetts sightings of Sasquatch. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you real soon with some more monstery goodness. Until then, stay frosty and aware, beautiful people. Thank you. Thank you very much. Summer of '79, a family was fishing on what the locals refer to East Bay River in the remote isolated town of West Haven, Vermont, which borders the Bigfoot hotspot of Whitehall, New York, when they were frightened by a huge hairy creature. The father said his entire family watched as a human-like head peered over some bushes. When the man yelled out, the figure turned and fled eastward. As it moved, he said the head occasionally came into view as it bobbed up and down over the bush line. He said it was hunched over as it ran. They report a similar encounter a week later near the same spot. This time the man brought a gun, but couldn't bring himself to fire it. Once again, we hear that, couldn't bring himself to fire it.